Welcome into a later edition of Why Start a Podcast. I'm Brayden Soprenet. That's Matt Perez, and that's Will Galvez joining us today. As always, episode 9 already. We had a couple of weeks where we had to take off, obviously, for some reasons, but we were back and we were talking Padres baseball right now, just because they just wrapped up. Kind of a reason why we had to cut back on the start time because a couple of things. Didn't want to compete with Padres baseball, but also kind of wanted to watch Padres baseball. So that was our little dilemma there. Padres get the dub though. What do you guys how are we feeling after 2 back-to-back series wins, Matt Perez?
I feel like I haven't seen that in a long time.
It's been a while.
I mean, teams oddly better on the road than they are at home to start, which is a little strange, but I don't think you can complain given taking down the Dodgers and a very good Milwaukee Brewers team to start. Doing it in different fashions too, which I think is great after it looks like it felt like they never won a comeback game last year. To do that consistently to start the year is phenomenal, and have a game like this where you jump on a team early and kind of put them to bed before they even get their opportunity to hit. It was a great one tonight.
They've been hitting really well the last couple of days, and I like how they're doing it with singles and everything, and I like how the way they're putting it together with kind of a way different approach offensively, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. Will, how you feeling after back-to-back series wins, my guy?
Pretty pumped. I really love 4-run first innings. I mean, talk about taking all of the stress off. I don't really see that often with this team, let alone feels like with any team. So it was cool. Steve's came out and dominated. I think riding the momentum of, the Dodgers, series win. I was a little worried, especially having to travel, to the Midwest. And the fact that they get the series win is pretty great. And this is something we didn't see last year. And I know it's still really super early in the year, but man, building blocks, right? Like small victories, like start adding these up. And eventually over time, we're going to see, hopefully at the end of the year, taking care of business like this. We're not going to be stressing for that final wild card spot,
Yeah. And here's the deal with like the first month of the season. I've talked about it on my talk shows, but the first 2 months of the season is very tough. It's a very tough start to the season for the San Diego Padres, especially coming off of last year. And, with everything that goes on with the first couple of weeks, you want to get off to a pretty good start. And you have to, kind of get off to a good start because you don't want to dig yourself into a huge hole at this early onset. But let's kind of talk about like who they've played already. They've already played the Dodgers twice. They played the Cardinals, who are not really doing that well, aside from the 2 out of 3 that they beat San Diego. But that's a team that's supposed to be competing for a division spot. The Cubs are a good baseball team. I mean, they've been red hot after leaving San Diego, and they took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers before San Diego. Giants aren't very good, but you're always going to get tough competition with division games. And then you look at like Milwaukee was 10-3 or 10-4 before you played them. You've already won the first 2 games. You've won a series against Milwaukee. You got Toronto coming into town, who's expected to compete in the American League East. You got the Rockies mixed in, obviously, which is not that big of a deal. But with the Colorado Rockies, you know that they're going to give you the Padres always have trouble in Colorado. Phillies, Reds, 2 teams that are playing really good baseball right now. Diamondbacks went to the World Series last year. Road trip to see the Cubs, who just played, who I already mentioned. Dodgers again. Rockies at home. Braves, Reds, Yankees, and then you finally on Memorial Day get a break with the Marlins, followed by the Royals, but the Royals are in first place. Those first 2 months are very tough for a team like the San Diego Padres. So at the beginning of the year, it was the top conversation has always been, can you be around 500 after the first 2 months? Because you're going to be in a really good spot. Right now, the Padres are 2 games above 500 after a really good week. That could have gone in a lot different direction had they not beat the Cubs 2 out of 3 and had they not beat the Dodgers 2 out of 3 and now beaten the Brewers for the 3rd consecutive series in a row. So good start to the season for the San Diego Padres. I like the way they're playing. I like the way they're hitting. It's been really good. A lot of singles back to back, which I love. And here's the thing that makes like good. I talked about it with the Dodgers before on this podcast, but also as part of the talk shows. What makes the Dodgers always really good is they have those selfless at bats where they're not trying to do too much. They're not trying to hit the ball over the fence. They're not trying to, you know, worry about padding their own stats. They really go up there. They have a good approach. Get base hits, find ways to drive in runs, find ways to manufacture runs. And the more that you could do that, the better your offense is going to be because it's a more well-rounded offense. Finding different ways to score runs, and that's been a major key to success for the Padres the last couple of days.
That's been the entire MO, I think, in the last. I mean, you see it today, and Manny's hitting the pitcher left and right, and you get some bloop hits and some duck far. I mean, like hitting the home runs are great, right? I mean, get scored right off the bat, but just seeing the ways that they are stringing together hits. Like yesterday, they had one extra base hit, and that was like relatively a garbage time double by Eggy Rosario, right? Just being able to play selfless baseball. It's kind of like what Mike Schilt believes in, and kind of seeing them commit to that early on. And the fact that I think that they're getting success by doing it, I think as a player, it kind of gets you to buy in a little bit easier. Kind of like, hey, this approach, this thought process works. And then when you get later on, when you are hopefully in a playoff chase or you're back in Dodger Stadium or you're, facing the Yankees at home and you kind of have some sort of oh crap, like what are we going to do? You got something to fall back on, right? Like like it happens in football. Like what do teams do when they're in trouble? It's something that they
run the ball.
Yeah. They can run the ball or they pat or like whatever. The Padres like, hey, like we know how to play. Like we know how we can score runs and create havoc on the bases and have winning baseball. Something that didn't look like they knew how to do for all of 2023.
They're doing it. It's 100%. You got to be able to find different ways to drive in runs. You got to find different ways to get guys on base, and they're doing both of those things. And last year when looking at this team, you saw a lot of times where they were trying to. It seemed like everybody was trying to hit one out of the ballpark, and just bad at bats, not really putting good at bats together. And it's been very interesting to see them be able to, kind of go away from that. And you got to say the offensive approach is just 10 times better than it was a year ago. And some of those guys that used to be on the team that are on other teams now. I mean, I watched Trent Grisham's at bat. One of them yesterday against the Blue Jays for the Yankees. It was the same stuff. It was like first two pitches were a ball. He took a pitch right down the middle at 95, and then he ended up popping it up, 2 pitches later. I was like, oh, that's the Trent Grisham that we saw here in San Diego. But I think the other thing too is the bottom of the orders is finding ways to contribute, and it's not Trent Grisham and Austin Nola and guys like Taylor Colway at the bottom of the order. You're getting guys contributing, and even though maybe statistically they're not some of the best, but a guy like Eggy Rosario or Tyler Wade, or now Luis Camposano, but those are guys that are finding ways to be productive as well. So it's not just a top heavy lineup.
Kind of touched on this last week about having a lineup with some length to it, right? When you have Jackson Merrill sitting over 300 in your 7, 8, or 9 hole, it's going to give the top of your lineup more opportunities to drive them in. I think that's been like the biggest deal is like you're seeing guys like Profar step up in 5 hole and then camp in the 6. It's not just, you're relying on your top 3 or 4 guys, which have played great, right? I mean, Cronenworth's gotten off to a hot start. Manny's gotten off to a hot start. Fernando's Fernando. But just knowing that each guy can kind of do what they need to do until you're in about the 9 hole with like a Wade situation. That's honestly been the biggest key, just having that length in that lineup.
The other thing too with this team, I mentioned on my show on Sunday is, we kind of talked about it for a second, but like, let's take a look at like guys like Tyler Wade for a second. I mean, to be honest with you, is Tyler Wade like a phenomenal player? No, but Tyler Wade is doing Tyler Wade things. Like he's playing at the best of his ability, and he's finding different ways to contribute offensively, even though he's not necessarily the player defensively. And you're seeing that with a lot of different guys on this team, and you're finding different ways, as I mentioned before, to score runs. And let's talk about Jackson Merrill for a second. I think Jackson Merrill's off to the best start he could potentially be on. Now, I still think teams are going to adjust to Jackson Merrill eventually, but you couldn't have asked for a better start to a season than what Jackson Merrill has given you at the plate and defensively.
Yeah, I mean it's the perfect. I mean he is getting every single break right now going his way too.
He's getting a lot of breaks
it's
that people don't want to admit
right.
because it fits
I
a
mean, you could
narrative.
take a
But
look on his batting average, balls in play. I mean, it's over 400. Is that sustainable? No. I mean, he's not a blazer on the base paths. He's going to be beating out infield singles left and right.
he beat out the double play today. That was
He
nice.
did, but I mean, he's not Fernando Tatis in his rookie year going down the line, right? Just day in and day out. But I mean, he's getting all these little duck farts that fall right in between and no man's land. But to be fair, his biggest at bat was Friday night in extra innings, which God knows how long it took for us to win an extra innings game last season, and he hits it right in the perfect spot against the Dodgers. I mean, he went with the 95-mile-an-hour pitch from Vesia and boom into left center field, and Padres get an 8-7 lead. I mean, that's the type of hitting that you really appreciate from a 20-year-old rookie.
He's not
That's
phased.
like
He's not phased by the big moment.
Right. I mean, that's like a seasoned approach.
Oh, 100%.
And hitting is totally his best tool. I mean, he's not going to hit for a lot of power. But just being able to put the ball in play consistently, you got to put pressure on the defense. I mean, you hear it when you're a kid, right? Like, just hit the ball and make them make a play. And things are going his way right now, and that's the best thing you can have as a rookie when you're 20 games in. Right?
Well, and that's why he's going to be successful in this league, regardless if I don't think he can sustain what he's doing right now, and we'll see what he does. And Tony said it on our roundtable last week, and I totally agree. But when the league adjusts, let's see how the kid adjusts back to the league, and that is a major problem for a lot of players. And I look back to some of the other former young players of the San Diego Padres, where I know it's different because he's a pitcher, but like a guy like Chris Paddock came out of the gate on fire, and he had that ordeal with Pete Alonso for no reason, right? He's chip on the shoulder guy. Didn't appreciate the Pete Alonso one rookie of the week. He was worried about that. And then
month in April,
right? And then he shoved against the Mets, right? I was at that game. He shoved against the Mets, right? And then it was like everything was great. And then you know what happened? The league made an adjustment on him. And then what did he do back? Nothing.
Kinda fizzled.
He didn't do anything, and he hasn't been anything since. So it's that adjustment.
He got his brother to tweet about him.
Yes. You could say the same thing again. It's a pitcher, so it's a little bit different. But like Ryan Weathers, Ryan Weathers makes his major league debut in a postseason game against the Los Angeles Dodgers during COVID, and he mows them down. But they'd never seen him before. They don't know. I mean, it's like you could look at all the numbers, the analytics, the stats about him in minor league starts, but until you physically see him against your guys, it's hard to make that adjustment. And then what did the league do? Made an adjustment on him. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, this Ryan Weathers guy sucks. Get him out of town. And because he couldn't make that adjustment back, tonight has 10 strikeouts against the Giants. He's starting to figure it out. But again, he's so young.
Right.
Like these guys are so young. You have to give them time to develop. And a lot of these dudes, like, I think a lot of fans just assume, and media members are talking about this too, and so are scouts. But I think a lot of people are assuming now that the norm is Ronald Acuna Jr. and Fernando Tatis Jr. and Bryce Harper and some of these players that came, Juan Soto that came up at 19, 20 years old, that are just beyond belief superstar talented players that, one, it's easy to do, and two, a lot of guys can do it. But the reality is, I mean, even if you're like 25 years old, that's still very young in Major League Baseball. And like you're a guy like Ryan, like how old's Ryan Weathers right now? 24?
Probably 23, 24.
23, 24, right? I mean, he's starting to figure out how to like fix it right now. He still has his prime years in front of him. He can still be a really good pitcher. Same thing can be said about Mackenzie Gore. I think
you're going to see it in DC with CJ Abrams.
Yeah, CJ Abrams is already right. He's already balling, right? Because it was 2 years ago, they brought him up too early, right? I mean, it was a need thing, and they're like, "Well, we need him," and it was like, "Well, he wasn't playing," and then there was like kind of on the fence, and he hit like just above 200. Like, what he hit like 230? I think he hit like 230 for the Padres, and they ended up trading him for Juan Soto, which I thought was a good move at the time. I still think it's a good move because Juan Soto was going to do more for you over the next 3 years than CJ Abrams was. CJ Abrams finishes that year hitting around 230, hit a little bit better in Washington. Kind of struggled last year, but really turned it on at the end of the season because the league adjusted to him and then he adjusted back and now he's doing a really good job. So it's at the beginning, the young guy is always going to have the advantage. He's going to be able to succeed. It's what you do after that first adjustment to tell me whether or not you're going to be a pro and whether or not you're going to be a dude that could be in the league and be that superstar that a lot of Padres fans are already ready to crown this guy as. And I'd love to see, I mean, if the Padres could develop their own guy and this guy is a superstar, then you got to start thinking about giving this dude a contract as soon as possible so you can have those Atlanta Braves style teams where you have these team-friendly contracts. We'll get to that in a second. But to me, I think Jackson Merrill's off to a great start. I think he's going to be a great player, but I can't build a statue for him at Park in the Park until he adjusts to the league's adjustment.
Totally. I'm totally with you on that. Everybody buying a Jackson Merrill jersey might need to pump the brakes.
Yeah, buying the Jackson Merrill jersey.
Maybe give it a couple months. Maybe he'll get an all-star jersey this year. Who knows? I mean, if he's playing and you believe in him at the rate that, player you think he'd be, you might get an all-star jersey. No, but I mean, not every player is going to be that Mike Trout, Ronald Acuna guy that's going to come out and light the league on fire and be the next face of the league for 3 to 4 years. Especially with this team. I mean, the Padres haven't hit on a homegrown guy in forever. I mean, if you want to count Fernando as homegrown because he was 16, sure. I mean, I would. But
yeah, like what is
AJ Preller
right?
hasn't had his own homegrown guy that's been a mega stud.
Right. I mean, like one of his big first signings was Adrian Morejon, who's been up and down. I mean, can you tell me who the first draft pick to make the pros was for AJ Preller? He pitched yesterday for the Rays.
For the Rays?
Yeah. Bullpen guy. Phil Maton.
Phil Maton was the spin rate on Phil.
He was the first Preller draft pick to make it to the bigs. I mean, so it's been an interesting track record. I think the Fernando thing is very interesting when it comes to who developed him because like he never played
Fernando Sr.
He never played a game for the White Sox. So you can't tell me like the White Sox developed him. He's got a couple of pictures wearing a White Sox uniform, but he basically did some workouts and some inter squads and then he got shipped off to San Diego. So who really developed Fernando if you want to go compare the Padres and the White Sox? I would say the Padres if those are the two comparisons, but I agree with you. Fernando was going to be Fernando regardless of what team he was on. He could have been drafted by the A's. He was still going to be a stud.
I mean, the White Sox are the White Sox.
I know they're awful too. Like they're not really good at developing either, so, but he was always going to be really good. And you haven't had those like top players develop. And I've said it before and people now just think I hate Jackson Merrill and I don't think he's going to be good. I never said that. I've always said he was going to be a good player. I just said, you got to be patient with this guy and not try to run him out of town if he starts off slow. And we would be saying the same thing if he started off slow. We'd be like, hey, you got to give this guy some time. He's 20 years old. But the fact that he's had success, we just want to jump on it. Well, this is just who he is. 100% he's just going to be an all-star. And I think you got to temper your expectations a little bit because that's how you get into a sense of overhyping your own players to a level that they will never get to, and then all of a sudden you assume that they suck, which we've seen from Padres fans and the Padres a lot with their players that they overhype, and then all of a sudden they get sent out of town.
Here's a question for the both of you. Who's been the greater surprise and led to more team success, in your opinion? Jackson Merrill, Jurickson Profar, or Jake Cronenworth?
I would say Jake Cronenworth just because the beginning of the season, I said if the Padres want to make the playoffs, Jake Cronenworth's going to have a big year. And he jumped out to a pretty good start until he strained his calf yesterday trying to run, beat it out of throw to first. That's why I don't care about hustle on major league teams because I'd rather have him play 160 games and not hustle instead of, he didn't blow out his calf, but instead of like straining his calf and having to miss a significant amount of time, it's like, all right, sick, you beat out a throw in Milwaukee in April.
Yeah.
I don't really care in the grand scheme of things. And when you lay it out like that, it's like it's the same thing. I'm tired of the Manny Machado doesn't hustle argument. In the postseason, he does. It's the only time I need him to beat out a throw at first base. Otherwise, I need Manny to be Manny. I need him to do his thing.
It's the whole deal of having feel, like know when to hustle.
Yeah, I mean,
know when to. Just know when to make the throw, right?
Like,
know when to force it.
I got to bring our guy Johnny, man, who's in the chat, dude. Johnny in a pickup game last night in softball. In a game the team he didn't play for, in a no wins, we were already up by like 15 runs. There's like 20 seconds left. He tries to beat out a throw at first because he's pissed. He rolled over on a ground ball. The guy at first grabs the ball and tries to beat him with a bag, and they just collision at first base. And now he's good now. That's why I can pull it up. But now Johnny's all beat up, dude. His jaw's hurt. He's laying on the ground. I was like, that's why you should have played high school football, Johnny. He got rocked by this dude that was being dumb, and it's like
Oklahoma drill.
Seriously. Field. I was a little worried about our guy Johnny there for a second, but it was, that's a time it's like you don't need to. That was him just being pissed, but like that's what I do too. And I like hit and I got 4 games tonight. I'm not beating that throw out and taking one in the face. Like it's not necessary. And when you play 162 games, you can't focus on those things in those games. I mean, even if the game's close against the Rockies on a Thursday night in May, we got bigger fish to fry. So my pick, long story short, would be Jake Cronenworth, just because I think he's going to be the key to success based on where they're at money wise, how much money he's got. He needs to have a really good year for that team to do well, and so far he has, and so far they've played really well. Will, who's been the biggest impact for this Padres team? Jackson Merrill, Jake Cronenworth, or Jurickson Profar?
Checking in here from my Kevin AC connection from Mars. So if you can hear this, my answer would be, I think Braden took mine, but Cronenworth's glove so far has been great too. And just seeing, you saw a couple plays against the Dodgers, so seeing that on the national stage, it's pretty awesome. I'll fade. I'll go Jurickson just because of his versatility. You can throw him in the outfield, you can throw him in the infield. He's putting together good at bats. Good clubhouse guy too. That I know that we're tired of hearing that, for the past few years or several years or decades, whatever, with the Padres. But what he's able to bring professionally, I think it's good for Merrill as well. And it kind of just feeds into all each other. Now, granted, I don't know how concerned I should be about the Cronenworth injury. Hopefully it's nothing serious, but it's just so Padres. It's just like we have a good thing rolling. And of course the stick goes into the wheel of the bike and we flip over. So hopefully it's something serious, but I would say Jurickson, I think, but overall, Merrill, this has been a good success. I think we need to revisit this conversation on May 31st. And if he's still putting up the same results, then build the statue, rename a street after him, get the jersey sales. But it's been are you guys surprised by the start of the season so far?
For the Padres in general?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they took 2 out of 3 from LA, but everything else is pretty much the same. I mean, I still think like they're playing really good baseball right now, but I still think on paper, like they have some major holes that could cause some serious problems throughout the season. And I do think they've gotten a lot of breaks this year. I mean, in the last 2 games in Milwaukee has just been like, oh, bloop shot. I mean, the first inning today was circus for Wade Miley. I mean, my guy, I talk about a series of unfortunate events for him for multiple reasons across the board, aside from the fact that he took one off the shin from Manny Machado, and then the Eggy Rosario like swinging bunt up the line that they decided to let it go foul and it just stays there. I mean, that looked like I was watching the Padres play defense in so many years, right? So I do think a lot of things have gone their way. If you look at like the sabermetrics of everything, like remember last year they were like one of the most unlucky teams of all time. This year they're one of the luckiest teams. And the thing is that's why I said last year, I think you guys said as well, was if you take last year's team top to bottom, exact same roster, don't change anything, I bet you they finished 8 games better this year than they did last year, just based on luck, because it was an unlucky team last year on top of a lot of things that didn't go their way.
I would say it's just the style that they're playing with. I mean, how many times did we see a game like Friday where they're down 7-3 to the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium on a Friday? They would roll over and be like, all right, hey, we'll get them tomorrow.
It's been since 2021 when
Yeah.
it was, and that was the beginning part of 2021, the tail end of 2020, because 2020 was the real season. It was like no lead was safe
Right.
against the Padres. And then
That's kind of what it's felt like.
And 2021 was like that until their starting rotation all got put on the injured list, and they're running out there with like Vince Velasquez and
Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, and
coming right off
Ryan Weathers with a bum ankle was your number 2 guy.
Yeah.
You know, so like
And then
until that point,
like
it
Monday,
was like that.
Monday, and we'll set it too. I mean, late game Sunday night on the West Coast that started even later because it rained, and you go to Milwaukee and you're down early, and then you still have the fight in your team and the confidence to be like, hey, you know what, we're in this and we're gonna take it.
I think today is even more important because like usually with those trips, and Annie said this on the show, but usually with those trips, it's the second day that you start to feel it, like today. So against Wade Miley, to jump out to an early lead and not have to worry about it, or play a grinded out, pounded out game against Milwaukee. This was the day that was going to be the toughest game for them in the 3 in Milwaukee, and they jumped out to an early lead. And then on top of that, I mean, how many times last year did we see that team get a lead, like score couple runs in the first inning, and then didn't score the rest of the game and didn't add on, and the other team would just kind of stay alive and keep chomping in, and all of a sudden what seemed like a really good game from your starting pitcher and a really good outing in your offense ends up being a 5-4 loss, and then you're just going like, well, I guess we got to get the next one. And then you racked up so many of those losses, you at the end of the season you missed the playoffs by 2 games. I mean, those are like, you had probably 10 to 15 games that could have gone in your favor, and you would have been in the playoffs, and then you wouldn't have had a lot of the crazy conversations we had during the offseason.
I mean, just going back to yesterday real quick, I think it was I want to say it was Joe that said it, that like he came in after the 5th inning or whatever, and the guy said, hey, like, we're gonna pick you up here, and they immediately responded and he jumped out and they scored 5 runs, 6 runs, whatever it was, in that following half inning. I mean, you've been part of a team before. You saying to your teammate, "Hey, like we're gonna pick you up here,"
Right?
And then going out there and doing it. I mean, that gives you all the confidence in the world that no matter what situation you're in, sounds like the 2020 Padres. Hey, no lead safe. Like, we're in every single game. And to do that earlier on in the year and not doing it in August, like, oh wait, but you know what? We can finally come back from ball games. That's going to propel them. I think it's going to have them gel as a team more. Right.
Right.
Going through some of these experiences and stuff. I'm not a, sports psychologist can tell you what makes a team, but I've been on a team enough times to know stuff like that's going to help you.
Oh, 100%.
Throughout the long run of 162 games and doing all these weird cross country trips.
It's a huge aspect to it. And when you got a tight knit group, when you got guys that, are pulling for each other and pulling the rope in the right direction, and kind of having that mindset of like, I'm gonna take this selfless at bat because I know the guy behind me is going to be able to pick it up. I could pass the baton. Those are teams that do serious damage in baseball in general. And that could be high school baseball, it could be college baseball, it could be the NFL, or it could be Major League Baseball, right? All different levels of baseball. The teams that are the best on offense are the ones that take selfless at bats, grind out at bats, don't swing at bad pitches, tag fastballs, right? Pitches in the zone, and knowing that I'm not going to try to do too much because I know the guy behind me is going to be able to pick up where I leave off. And we've seen that a lot this year, and a lot different than last year. That seemed like every time somebody was up, it was, I got to go be the guy. Almost like everybody's at bat last year was like a player in March Madness trying to hit the 3 late and trying to be that guy, right? I mean, you had players swinging out of their shoes trying to put one over the fence and hit 5-run home runs that were impossible to do with like nobody on base, and try to get everything back on one swing. And it led to just terrible at bats, which led to terrible offense, and which ultimately led to guys trying to do their own thing because they thought if they didn't do it, they weren't going to win. And that's the difference, a major difference between last year's team and this year's team. The other difference, I think, is I think this team right now, I think they have enough young guys that are hungry that want to make a name of themselves in Major League Baseball that don't give a you know what about anybody else or what uniform you wear that are going to play hard nosed baseball every day. I think that's also a spark because for a long time Fernando was that, and now you have a couple of players like that that are really going to drive these guys. Bring some more youth and energy into some of the veterans. Not that they need it, but you always like to feel that spark. And I think that's a big sign of their success right now is those guys like Luis Camposano and Jackson Merrill, some of the younger players that are in the lineup that have been part of the organization that people are excited to play with and compete with. And those guys going out there and hustling and playing hard nosed ball. I think that's another big factor of this team this year.
Yeah, and to kind of draw a comparison to life, it's like no matter like I mean, if you're in, let's say, you're like line of work and you have other people that may get paid more than you have more experience, it's only natural to be like, okay, hey, maybe they can cover for some of my faults for being a young guy. Right.
Right.
So I think that might have been maybe a little bit what you saw last year. It's okay. Hey, maybe if I won't do this, and so will. But that's not always the case, right? So now you have guys that don't give a what um, about pretty much anything, right? And hey, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna work. I'm gonna show, and I'm gonna prove it. And then the team, the company, the bit, whatever, is gonna you know be better off with that mindset. Right. So I think that's kind of like where this team is at right now. And hopefully where they keep going because it's not just going to be the 26 guys that are here right now that are going to play for the next 162. Right. You're going to be calling up guys from the minor leagues the entire year that hopefully that message has been translated from the top all the way down. And just given how Schilt is a big time player development guy and how they've made hires internally and advancing guys, I think that's going to be the case.
I think so too. The other thing I want to mention, I mean, there's different ports in your like career for like any kind of avenue where your role is different like as you get older. Like the veterans, it's kind of like coaching too. Like when you have your coaching staff, like the guys that need to be, kind of those rah-rah guys to get the kids going are like the younger coaches. They got to be bringing the energy. They got to be bringing the big pep talks. We don't give a shit about anybody else. Like kind of that attitude. We're like in any type of game, like when you're coaching, and things aren't going your way, you got the young guys getting everybody like engaged, mentally engaged, physically engaged, like rah-rah stuff, while the older coaches that have been there and done that figure out how to win. Right. I mean,
Right.
they're the ones that are like they have to stay calm, cool, and collected. I think the same thing is the case for, you know, players and in particular in baseball, where if the Padres are down, they need that big hustle play, right? You need somebody to beat out a throw. You need somebody to maybe just slap one in. You need somebody to create something on the base pass, and that's where those young guys like Jackson Merrill play a big factor. And then when you have those big moments, that's when you need that low heart rate guy like a Manny Machado or a Fernando now or Xander Bogarts that have been there, done that, have played in big time games that understand how to be cool in the moment. That's where those guys shine. So it's a good mix. I think they got a good mix of young athletic players. I think they got a good mix of some savvy vets. I still think they got some holes to deal with, but overall, I'm pleased with what they've done in the first 20 games now.
Where's the biggest hole you see on this roster right now?
Out of all three aspects here,
Yeah.
or the major aspects, I think your starting rotation's fine. I think if one player goes down, I think you're in a world of hurt. But I think it's solid, and I'm not. Joe looks like he's pitching hurt right now. I mean, he looks banged up and he looks just grinding. But he's. I mean, as bad as his outing was yesterday, he got a quality start. He went.
Yeah.
He gave you 6 innings. Like he's gonna give you 6 innings. He's gonna fight to the end as long as his pitch count's not high. I'm not worried about you either because you's a pro. You knows how to handle himself, and he usually makes adjustments throughout the year and goes on some really good runs. So those two, I'm not really worried about. Dylan Cease has been electric, which we knew he was going to be. I mean, he's got the stuff of an ace. Obviously his command is not there, but you knew that going in. I mean, he is a right-handed Blake Snell with just a little bit more velo on his ball. So that's what you're going to get out of him. You're going to get, sometimes there's going to be some games where it's like 90 pitches through 4 innings, and there's going to be other games where he's just absolutely shoving through 7. And the thing I like the most about Cease actually happened today with he walks a guy, he's got 106 pitches, and there's 2 outs in the
Oh, and
in the 6th inning, and
Shota goes, "Hey."
he's
Yeah.
go back. I'm not no.
Yeah.
And Schilt, and that's the difference between Schilt. Like Bob Melvin would have pulled him. And I'm not a believer in saying that like this team is just drastically better because Bob's gone. I think a lot of people are buying the narrative from
Buying the Bob Kool-Aid.
They're buying the narrative from the team that's like that guy that's no longer with us is the problem for everything, and it wasn't us. Because you got to understand who's telling you these things, right? It's the organization's never going to be like, well, it was our fault. Like they're gonna be like, see that guy, it was him.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna. It was probably a little bit of both. So I'm not gonna put all this on Bob Melvin, but I will say like Mike Schilt is he's a fiery guy that is a player's coach in a sense that like he's gonna trust his guys and like go do it, So I did like that out of him, and then I think Michael King's gonna be fine. He's got some pretty good stuff too. I think the Dodger game was kind of an anomaly because the ball's flying out of the yard for everybody. So starting rotation I think is fine. I think the bullpen's starting to figure it out too, and I thought that was the biggest strength going into the season. They just got off to a rocky start. I think they're going to get better as the season goes on. So for me, I mean, assuming there's no injuries with the pitching staff, it's probably the depth, the bench. I mean, the bench they have no bench. I think the bottom half of the order is getting incredibly lucky right now. I think Eggy Rosario has been playing hard. I think Tyler Wade's been playing hard. I think if you look at some of the guys on the bench, Kyle Higashioka, I think all of those players are playing to the best of their ability and they're doing the best they can. So I don't really want to like shit on them because at the end of the day, if you give me a hard 90 and you give me your best effort, you're trying your best, and that's just what your best is. You can't fault the ball player for that. And, Tyler Wade's busting his ass to try to help this team, and he's done a pretty good job, I think, in doing that. But, until Manny comes back, but even when Manny comes back, it's like, to play third base, you still don't have a DH.
Yeah.
You don't have a DH unless you want to rotate guys. You don't have anybody off the bench where you're sitting there going like, I need this guy to come up late in the game and I'll have him pinch hit. You don't have that guy either. They signed Donovan Solano. I mean, I don't know what you want to make out of that, as a minor league deal, maybe some added depth, but just adding him is not going to add anything else. And they missed out on Tommy Pham because they didn't want to give him the guaranteed money. I guess Brandon Belt is still out there. I highly doubt that they sign him for what he wants. But to me, I think they're going to run into a problem where eventually the bottom half of the order is going to slump. And I don't think there's anybody on the bench that's going to change that. And, there's some glaring holes there. And as much as they're putting a big effort and playing hard-nosed ball, that can only take you so far.
Yeah. I mean, if I were to rank them by, first 3 things that I would be concerned about, it's probably your depth or lack thereof.
Right. Bench players.
Bench players at 1. At 2, it's probably starting pitching depth / consistent 5 guy, and then bullpen. I was a guy that 2 weeks ago I was kind of concerned about what this bullpen's going to look like, but as you get into games and you get in situations that are out of the blue and uncalled for, you're seeing certain guys step up, like a Wandy Peralta. I mean, that guy was in on Sunday against the Dodgers, and he was able to get out of it. Right, where it's
he's
like,
that savvy vet in the back end of the bullpen, knows how to get guys out.
Yeah, exactly. But like just seeing how Schultz going to be managing these guys, and you saw it on Friday. The guy used like what felt like the entire bullpen got like emptied, right? Because King didn't take you as deep as he wanted him to, but he was playing matchups. He wasn't trying to get 3 outs out of everybody. He was like, okay, hey, get me to the next batter, then we'll see where we're at.
Right. Well, he knows how to, with the new rule of facing 3 guys, he knows how to manipulate that, right?
Exactly.
Where you face like the last 2 guys because it's the last 2 outs, and then he makes a change, or he carries a guy over for the next inning, get the lefty-lefty matchup or whatever. You get that 1 out, and then I'll move him in. I mean, for a fact, if Mike Schilt didn't have that rule, you'd have a new pitcher every freaking at bat. He would be using everybody.
You'd be seeing about
the
three guys get an option at the end of the week to grab some guys from AAA, and hey, you need some new arms.
But I think the bullpen going into the season was one of their biggest strengths. And I really think that the weird start to their season and starting super early was kind of a reason for their bullpen to not be ready to go by the time the season started. And I only think they're going to get better. And here's where else they're going to get better. You're going to get, I mean, you and Joe and Dylan Cease, they're giving you six innings an outing.
They're giving you like bulldog outings.
They're grinding out outings for you where they're giving you, 6, and I think they're feeding off each other. And I like the competition within the competition between the starting pitching, within the game. And if they give you innings and you could save your bullpen arms, your bullpen's going to be at full strength all year. What was the big problem with the 2019 team? They got off to a great start, right? They got off to a great start because you were getting good starts out of Eric Lauer and Nick Margavicius and Chris Paddock and Matt Strahm, but they were giving you like 4 innings, 4 to 5 innings, 4 innings shutout ball, and then it was like bullpen use. And then I
have nightmares of seeing Andy Green come out of there in like the 4th inning.
And then you got to June and your bullpen was exhausted.
Oh yeah.
And your starting rotation of all these young guys got exposed because they figured them out. And then it just went into the shitter immediately. And it was bad news. The same thing can be said about any team with veteran starters too. If you burn your bullpen out in the beginning of the year, you're going to have nobody left for the second half of the season. And you're going to have nobody left for postseason play. And right now they're keeping them strong, keeping them healthy. They have multiple guys that can close out games. I like Enel De Los Santos. I think Matsui's been great in a lot of different spots. That's always difficult transitioning from Japan or Korea over to the United States, and Matsui hasn't been phased by it. You got the veteran in Wandy Peralta, and look at Bob Suarez is keeping it simple. He's just throwing fastballs. He's like, hit it. Go ahead. I'm throwing 100 miles an hour. Hit it. And until people start hitting it, they're going to find they're going to keep throwing the fastball, and he's going to find different ways to get out. He's keeping it simple. Like we hadn't seen that out of Robert Suarez. He's trying to like dabble with the split, and he's trying to throw all his other pitches in there, but he's just like, I'm going to get it with the fastball. I'm going to keep it fresh. And he's been outstanding in the back half of that bullpen too. I think it's going to be interesting with that number 5 spot. Matt Waldron, I thought had a really good outing against the Dodgers. He had him off balance, and he's throwing below the hitting speed, and guys have soft contact against Matt Waldron. I don't necessarily know that's going to keep up. I'd like to see Johnny Brito get some starts because obviously that's kind of more him. We've seen him not do very well coming out of the bullpen, and I think it's because he is a starting pitcher, and I think you got to find ways to get that guy starts, and we'll see what type of guys that they pull up from the minor leagues, because I'd like to see Randy Vasquez get an opportunity too, and I think he will at some point. I think that 5 in that rotation is going to be a revolving door.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what we get out of Michael King tomorrow. His start to the year has been weird. I mean, again, he came out of relief in Korea against the Dodgers, looked fine, and then his first home start against the Giants, he walked an insanely high number of guys, but like you can see the stuff's there. Like you can see the movement. You can see just from his frame that he looks like a big league pitcher that can withstand 6-7 innings, or like a Joe, right? And then what was he throwing? Saturday or Friday? He was throwing.
Are you talking about King?
Yeah.
King threw Friday.
He threw Friday. I mean, the Dodgers tattooed him.
Right. He was giving up home runs 5 all over the place.
Granted, that's the second time that they've seen him, right? Because they saw him.
It was the second time
earlier.
they saw him.
But it's like he's had an outing where he's caught a lot of barrels, and he's had an outing where he's walked a lot of guys.
Right.
And he really hasn't given that many barrels throughout the season. It's like he's got he's gonna learn at some point to trust his stuff. And when that happens, I think that's gonna be a really, really good piece for them. To have the 4 solid horses that can win you a series, which is what they've done, right? I mean, the offense picked them up on Friday, and then they were able to take that series. And at some point, it's going to be the pitching that's going to be holding offenses to 1 to 2 runs a game. And King will hopefully develop into that later on in the year. I just really like his stuff. I like his movement. I like his deception. He throws a little cross body, which makes it tough for a hitter. And he's kind of the guy the Padres, I don't want to say are banking on, but he was the main piece that came back.
He's the prize piece
deal.
In that deal.
Yeah.
100%. Again, he's still trying to figure out how to start at the major league level because, he made his debut in 2019 as a 24-year-old pitched one game. And then, he pitched 9 games in 2020. He pitched 22 games in 2021, only made 6 starts, pitched 34 games in 2022, didn't make a start. And then last season, pitched in 49 games, only made 9 starts. I mean, he only has 22 starts in the big leagues. So he's still learning how to be a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. And again, he's got really good stuff. And I think he's trying to learn how to be the guy that has good stuff. Because that was the big reason why they brought him in, right, is because of his stuff and the potential that he has to be a really good starter, a front end starter, not an ace, but like a 2 or a 3 in the future. But the only thing that's kind of a downside, he's already 29 years old. It's not like he's a 24-year-old figuring out. He's a 29-year-old, but I just don't think he's had ample of opportunity to be able to do that. Again, 22 starts in the big leagues in 6 years is not a lot of starts, and I think there is an adjustment period to being a starter, getting guys out a third time, and going through it instead of having to be a relief pitcher. And we're going to see. I mean, the most innings that he's ever thrown in a season was last year. He threw 104. Before that, the most innings he threw was 2021. He threw 63. I mean, that's not a lot of innings. I mean,
No.
Guys that want to be really good starting pitchers in Major League Baseball, that goal they set is 200. Only 104 innings is not a lot. And I'm curious to see if they're going to try to ease him into it. But knowing Mike Schilt, I mean, they're letting him go after it. So we'll see what he does. I'm encouraged though, because I thought when they brought in Dylan Cease, I thought it went from being a rotation that could get you to the playoffs to a rotation that can win you games in the playoffs or win you series and advance you in the playoffs. Because that one bugaboo for the Padres in 2022 was the one bugaboo in 2022 was starting pitching in the 4th spot. You had to go out there with Clev,
Manaea,
and you had to go out there with Manaea. And it's been terrible. So I think it's a lot better.
Yeah. We'll see. Only time will tell. But Ruben Niebla, we've seen, can work wonders with guys. So King's in great hands. And I'm honestly just pulling for the guy because I'm that much of a believer in what he's got in his arsenal.
You want to recap the Masters?
Recap our time watching the Masters, or recap the event itself, because the event itself left much to be desired.
Dude, it kind of fell apart, man. It was just kind of like it was weird. It was just like it wasn't weird. I mean, but like Scheffler just ran away with it, and then nobody was really close. And like when Morikawa couldn't get out of when he had that one chip that didn't get out of the bunker, it was over. And Scheffler went on to win his second one, and it's always fun to be a part of the Masters, but yeah, it's just I was just waiting for the thing to be over. I'm like, just give the guy the green jacket. It was the 14th and on the 14th tee box.
Yeah, at one point I think it was a 3 or 4-way tie essentially at the top. Where, guys were all 7 under. I was like, hey, we're gonna have a little bit of a horse race here. And then the Swedish guy Oberg blew up on a hole. And then Morikawa found the water on a hole, and Homa got an unlucky bounce on a hole. And then after that, I was like, all right, put the kids to bed. Let's fire up
Sunday Night Baseball, huh?
Yeah, and I mean, if it was any other golfer besides Scotty, you're like, hey, there's a chance he might blow up too. But he's been the best golfer on the planet for the last 2 years, right? It's just like he can't do any wrong. I mean, even when he bogey, he'll come back and he'll birdie the next 2 out of the 4 holes. And it's like, all right, yeah, he's back. But I think we had a great time with the Masters. We had a little Azalea cocktail.
Azalea cocktail is great.
Is there anything more peaceful than just watching the Masters on a nice sunny Sunday with a cocktail in hand and you're dozing in and out of a nap and kind of paying attention to what's going on in the sports world, but not really?
Mike fell asleep at least 3 times.
Yeah,
he never admitted it, but he was falling asleep, dude.
He was dozing off a little bit. And we had a good BCD. We had a good buffalo chicken dip.
BCD was money. The burgers nightcap knocked it off, and Padres ended up getting the dub against the Dodgers. It's great. It's great times. Great times had by all.
Big time weekend. Got a bigger one coming up.
That's right. Yeah, I'm going to be at the park all weekend. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be a great time down at Petco Park. The residents of Petco, the mayor of Petco Park over here. There's a lot of other people that want to claim your title.
I mean,
Windsock Sam thinks he's Mr. San Diego.
the guy's never been in the cooler. I mean,
Hey, you know what?
I mean,
That's all he doesn't. You know what?
If you know where the cooler is in Petco,
That's right.
I have a lot of respect for
100%. 100%. How many games we got left? Dodgers up 4-2 on the Nats into 6. Cardinals up on the A's 3-2, bottom 7. Mariners up on the Reds 3-1, top 7. And the Diamondbacks are up 3 against the Cubs in the bottom of the 6th inning. So fun, wild National League West. Fun National League West.
Yeah, I mean, at least a start. But you would think the Dodgers are going to pull away at some point here if Ohtani figures out how to hit with runners in scoring position. The guy's got like 1 hit and like 26 at bats or something. It's like, all right, that's going to average out.
Well,
by the end of the season,
he's been worried about Ipe, dude. That's covered now. I don't have to worry about that anymore.
Saying that he's trying to hedge when he's up at the dish.
Yes, he's trying to hedge some bets at the dish, my guy. I think it's gonna. Some people said at the beginning of the year that it was gonna be just as competitive as the AL East.
It's AL with Baltimore running away with it.
Well, just like how everybody in that division is good, right? Like everybody in that division is above 500, except for I think the Red Sox as of late.
So the Red Sox are the Rockies. Is that where we're at now?
Yeah, the Rockies are just exceptionally worse. No, they're not because they're 500. Everybody in that division is 500 or better. Boston's 9-9, Toronto 10-8, Tampa 10-8, Baltimore 11-6, the Yankees 12-6. National League West 11-8, 11-9, 8-9, 7-11 with the Giants. But I don't know. I think that's going to be I think that division's going to come down to the wire. I think it's going to be fun to watch. I know the AL East is always going to be tight, but I think the NL West might be the second best division, although the Central is giving a run for their money right now.
I was going to say, I mean, for how many years did it sound like the NL and AL Central both were just duds? I mean, they were getting one, maybe 2 teams in each year, and then now you got the NL Central. It's like, hey, you know what? We're still here. We got some respectable teams. We got some exciting teams.
You want to overreact to that? I mean, do you think the Pirates are going to be there at the end of the year?
I don't think they'll be there at the end of the year. But
do you think that division will be the best division in the National League at the end of the year?
No, but I could see the NL East potentially being the best because I mean the Rockies are the Rockies, the Giants. They kind of have last year's Padres in them where they can't hit right now. And then Arizona, I felt it was a little bit of a flash in the pan.
Last year, I thought so too.
I feel like they got like solid players, and Corbin Carroll's a stud, but it didn't look sustainable from like a roster perspective, But that, like, if you look at the East between the Braves, the Phillies, those are 2 teams that are in it. The Nationals are young; they could make a run potentially. And the Mets, who knows what the Mets are doing? It's 1 year, or last year they're saying that they're punting and holding out for a couple years, but their payroll would say otherwise.
I think
talent will say otherwise.
I think they suck, dude. I don't think they're going anywhere. Speaking of overreactions, here I got some for you. You can buy or sell these from ESPN.com. They put this out 2 weeks into the season. We're a little bit over that now because this came out last week. But here's some hot takes from the MLB or the ESPN staff that cover MLB. Let's talk about the Mets you brought up. Buy or sell, the Mets won't contend again this year or anytime soon.
I'll sell that. Their owner's willing to spend money, so they'll be able to contend soon.
He is.
It honestly depends what your definition of soon is. Like, as soon, like 3 years?
I'll give you 3 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think if they sign Juan Soto in the offseason.
Well, I mean, yes, that's an immediate contend.
Right. They would be a lot better. I don't know. They just do Met things all the time. The Mets are always doing Met things.
Yeah. Cowboys do Cowboy things. I mean, I'm used to it.
Dallas Cowboys are way better than New York Mets. That's kind of disrespectful to your Dallas Cowboys.
Hey, it's been a tough offseason. It's been a very tough offseason.
Hey, Royce Freeman.
Royce Freeman is a big free agent signing.
Here's another Mets one. It's on the polar opposite side. Buy or sell, the New York Mets will make the playoffs in 2024, and the New York Yankees will not.
Sell. Yankees are a much better roster this year than the Mets are. Eric's right. He said 2025 for the Mets on Twitter. I would buy that one.
I would buy that.
2025.
But okay, with the Yankees, right? Here's the logic that AJ Mass had. The logic was the Yankees are in a way more difficult division. It's going to be tougher for a wild card spot. The New York Mets, with kind of a down National League, they could sneak into the playoffs where like the Yankees are going to have to be perfect.
Yeah, but
I think you're grasping at straws there.
Yeah. Like the Yankees roster
So he says the Yankees
in lineup in
Yankees
particular.
win 90 games, will go golfing early. Mets will win 83 and see October action.
Well, I mean that's believable the way that he puts it, but
The Yankees win
me
90
as
games.
a baseball fan is going to buy the Yankees more just because.
Oh
of
yeah,
their
100%. No, I agree. They're
Judge,
way
Soto,
better
Rizzo.
than-
I mean, like those are dudes that can carry you.
But can they make it through an entire season? I don't think
Juan
they
can. Guy played 162.
One can, but the other two can't.
Judge
He's
Judge
always
can
hurt.
Take you.
He's always hurt. He'll be hurt again. And Stanton's a ticking
as long
time
as he
bomb.
doesn't kick his toe against Dodger Stadium's concrete. I think.
Hey,
he'll be all right.
they host the Dodgers this year. They don't have to worry about
there
that.
you go.
I don't think the Yankees have enough pitching to make it through the year.
They might not, but that's
they don't
when
have
you reevaluate halfway through, and
they're gonna have to go buy some arms at the deadline because they don't have enough starting. I mean, Nestor Cortez, Nasty Nestor is their ace right now. I mean, he's good like 2 or 3. He's not an ace.
He's got to fix his little.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. That looked like
mumbo jumbo.
Shane Gillis was a pitcher. Anthony Volpe will produce more value in his age 23 season than Derek Jeter did.
How much did Derek Jeter produce?
Derek Jeter, playing in his second full season as a 23-year-old in 1997, slashed 291, 370, 405. He had 103 OPS plus with 116 runs, fourth in the AL, and 190 hits, which is third in the AL. As about a neutral defender at shortstop that season, he generated a 5 WAR for the Yankees in a team that finished 96 and 66. Volpe is poised to outperform him this season. The glove at shortstop already plays up at plus 18 career defensive runs saved, and his approach to the plate looks dramatically improved. Volpe is making better swing decisions and producing more opposite field contact. He produced a 3.3 WAR and in an up and down rookie season, a figure he could double as a sophomore. So Anthony Volpe, buy or sell, has a higher WAR this year than Derek Jeter did when he was 23.
I'll buy that.
It's got to be better than 5.
I'll buy that. The guy's already at 1.4.
Right. I could totally buy it.
April's halfway over.
Right.
And based off the lineup that he's in too, and this Yankee Stadium, I think, plays a little bit more hitter friendly than the old one. And yes, AL is very competitive. Good arms that he's gonna be facing night in and night out. But yeah, I mean, Volpe this year, he looks like a different player. Like just like seeing like the highlights and stuff like that.
A lot better than he was last year.
He looks a lot better. He looks a lot more comfortable.
Way more comfortable.
So I will buy Anthony Volpe.
I could buy it because a 5 WAR doesn't seem like totally out of reach, right? It just doesn't seem that far out of reach for him. Next question. I got 2 questions for you on the Central divisions that we brought up before. Detroit Tigers will win the American League Central, buy or sell?
I'll sell that.
I can buy that. 4 under 25-year-old regulars: Spencer Torkelson, Colt Keith, Riley Green, Parker Meadows. Haven't hit yet, but they should. It's a good core group of guys. They're young. They've already jumped out to a pretty good start to the season. White Sox are not competing in that division.
Are you sure?
Yes. Guardians are very up and down. Like Royals, good start to the year, but like, can the Royals keep it up? I know they made some moves during the offseason. And then the Twins, they're kind of just mediocre. They're just kind of mediocre. Yeah. Like, when's Byron Buxton going to get hurt? That's kind of what they're waiting for. So I could kind of buy the Tigers winning the Central Division.
The Royals will probably give them the best run for their money if I were to, bet. Okay, I'll take Kansas City. Just based off their arms. I mean, they got 2 former Padre guys that are shoving right now between Lugo and Waka. Their offense has been a pleasant surprise. I think they're expected to do what they're doing. They also got former Padre Adam Frazier out there, I believe. The Guardians are a wild card because you just never know what they're going to get. Losing Shane Bieber is a big loss for him.
A huge loss. Obviously. And usually when you lose your ace, it's not going to end well for you.
Yeah. The Twins are going to be middling for the entire season because that's just what the Twins do. And this Twins roster isn't comparable to what they've had in the years where they made the playoffs and immediately got bounced by the Yankees.
Don't have the rotation, don't have the horses. They're just kind of they're an average team.
Yeah. But the youth of the Tigers is exciting. You might get flashbacks of last year's Arizona Diamondbacks, just thinking, hey, you know what? They could be this year's, Arizona, where they get in and they might be a surprise. but I would lean Kansas City.
I think Kansas City's probably the deal on that one. But I can buy it. Like, I can totally buy the situation. I do,
It's not far fetched whatsoever.
so that's that to me. Um, it's it's just interesting with that division doing just so well right now. It's unbelievable how good they are. But again, it's only like we're barely 20 games in, and only the Padres and Dodgers have played 20 games. Everybody else
Right.
is not at that point. National League Central, the Pittsburgh Pirates will win the NL Central.
No.
Buy or sell?
No, I mean, we just talked about this.
O'Neal Cruz, Brian Hayes, Henry Davis, Brian Reynolds, David Bednar, Mitch Keller, Jack Sawinski.
Joey
Off to a
Bart.
good start. Joey Bart
Bart's
looks 10 times
reinvigorating his
better
career.
in Pittsburgh than he did. To me, the Central divisions are both up for grabs. I don't think there's a clear winner. That's why I think like the Pirates could buy that the Pirates could win the Central division. They don't have the horses on the mound to stay in the entire year.
No, they lack more pitching than other teams do that might be in that
100%.
same pot, kind of like what you said about the Yankees. But it's like the Yankees' current pitchers now are
still better than
like the Pirates
Mitch
guys.
Keller.
100%. The Reds could be a surprise. Milwaukee's gotten off to a great start, but you don't know what Christian Yelich. It's almost like Byron Buxton. It's like phenomenal player when he's out there, but the best ability is availability, and they both kind of lack it, more or less.
Right.
The Cubs, Cody Bellinger decides to play like he did last year. That'd be great for him. Like we saw them against the Padres. I mean, like that club is like a roller coaster.
Now, the Boris 4 right now are not really doing too hot.
No, they're not.
But they signed late, right? They're not up to par yet. Ron Davis says Hosmer not walking through those doors in Kansas City. Facts. He's not. Maybe in a podcast for him. Cole Parker 19 on Instagram. Pirates always start good and crash. The only difference is MLB Network had the difference between last year's start and this year's start for the Pirates. I remember last year they went like 25 and something.
Yeah.
They went on an 11-1 streak. This year's Pirates team, so last year they started 9-7. This year's Pirates team started 11-5. So already better than that. The run differential is way higher this year than it was last year. And, I think they're going to be, they're playing a lot better baseball than just going on a streak, which is what the reason was last year. That's why I think it might be a little bit different.
Right.
White Sox. Here's a good one for you.
Oh, yes.
White Sox match the 1962 Mets with 120 losses.
Wow.
Buy or sell?
I'll buy it.
I'll buy it too, dude. They're bad.
I mean, they're bad from an owner standpoint. They're bad from an organizational standpoint.
Fish stinks from the top, dude. Stinks from the head, my guy.
I mean, they're selling tickets for $1 on SeatGeek. They're doing $4 giveaways.
$4.15 tax break tickets.
I had a buddy that was there last night.
Are you going to Nostrini's deal?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Our guy, Trevor Martin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He's out there in Chicago, and he caught the Nick Nastrini Major League debut for a cheap buck.
Good for Nick, dude.
Yeah.
It was good. I thought he had a pretty good outing.
Yeah. I wasn't able to watch the whole thing. I went back earlier today. I watched like the first 3 innings.
He looked
fine.
good.
Yeah.
First time through the order, he shoved.
Yeah.
But they'd never seen him before. So that was going to be the kid. They even said on the White Sox broadcast, like, well, Nick's going to have the advantage here because they haven't seen him one time. And they talked to the Royals staff. They're like, look, we looked at his metrics, kind of all that stuff in the minors, but until we have guys going up there seeing him, we're not going to be able to do anything about it. Second time through, a little bit shakier. I mean, Vinny Pasquantino hit one to the freaking north side last night. And did you watch the broadcast at all? Did you see that part?
No,
they showed a replay. They showed a replay of the so he crushed.
Yeah.
As soon as he hit the ball, I'm like, that's gone.
Yeah.
And then they show the highlight. They show the replay, right? Here's a replay. Isolated shot of Chris and Beth, his parents in the box. And you don't see it, like it's just their reaction to the home run. Ball's hit. And Chris immediately goes, "Oh no!" And Beth is doing like with my mom. Oh, catch it! Get that! Oh no, it's gone. It's like it was priceless, right? So he's like,
that's funny.
you see the reactions of them, like first punch out against Bobby Witt Jr. They're going nuts.
Yeah,
And it's a whole run. They're like, "Oh no, that's gone."
It's
it
like
was so
the
funny.
First, I want to say the third out of the first inning, or maybe it was the second inning. It was a fly ball to center, and he little hop off the mound where it was like, oh, it was like a. It was a
was that in the fifth?
No, it was in the first or second. Like how May from the Dodgers always hop up.
Oh
On
yeah,
a fly ball. It was kind of one of those.
got a
fly
guy.
Out.
Well, he was in the Dodgers organization. Maybe Dustin May taught him that move. He ends up getting into some trouble in the fifth inning. Gives up a run. Has a couple of guys on with 2 outs. Walks the leadoff guy.
Never a good thing
in the order, and he's got to face Bobby Witt Jr. with the bases loaded and 2 outs, facing him for the third time, and he already punched him out the first 2 times. And I'm like, are they gonna let him? Are they gonna let him do this right now, or are they gonna go to the bullpen? My dad's like, I'd go to the bullpen. I'd take him out. And they left him in, and they're like, all right, like let's go after Bobby Witt Jr. I think he gets a full count, and then Witt puts a charge into one.
Yeah.
I mean, he hits it, and Nick's reaction was like, shit, that's gone. Like he was like, there's no way that's staying in the yard. And the ball died at the top of the wall. Center fielder makes the play, and Nick's like, got out of it.
That's an out right
but
there.
that was, to me, it was like such a major difference of like the psyche of a young starting pitcher. If you have the outing of him making that catch and you only give up 2 runs, you give your team a chance to win, you get some punch outs in there, you go five innings, right? Compared to ball leaves the yard, or you bring somebody in and he gets shelled, and all of a sudden your ERA's through the roof. You gave up 6 runs in your first outing, and everybody just thinks you flopped. Right. So I'm glad that he got out of it. He got Bobby Witt 3 times, punched him out twice, both on a nasty changeup, up and in. So good for Nick Nastrini.
I think that was some of the only changes he threw to righties.
Yeah, he only threw it to him.
Yeah, because I was looking at his numbers like kind of side by side. It's a benefit of watching a game back, right? You're kind of able to see the stats and kind of put the whole thing together. Right. It's like the plan was super simple, which I think is good to give a guy in his first big league start.
He threw fastballs and sliders.
Yeah, you're going to go fastball slider to righties, and you're going to go fastball change up to lefties, more or less. Just own those 2 pitches for 5-6 innings and see where we're at the end of the day. But back to your question, the White Sox.
Will the White Sox
Disaster.
match the 1962 Mets with 120 losses?
I
say
will
yes.
buy that.
Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert already hurt.
That's not a shocker.
Yeah, new general manager is going to keep sending pieces away. And they got to they're rebuilding. They're trying to get a new ballpark. I mean, they're just like they're atrocious.
They're on the A's.
Yeah, kind of path, and it's just whether or not they want to move.
Yeah, send them to Montana.
Yeah, where they get Montana? That's right. Put them in the middle of the country where they don't have any teams. I could see them doing it. Buy or sell, Mike Trout will have a 10-WAR season.
Oh, buy.
I'm buying it too.
Back.
He is back.
Guy's back.
He looks pretty good. What's his WAR right now? It's got to be pretty high.
That. All he had to do is get rid of the only player better than him in the entire league, and he'll turn back into Mike Trout.
He doesn't have to worry about Ipe anymore. He's comfortable.
He's at 1.1 right now.
I think he could do it as long as he stays healthy. He hasn't played a full season since 2019.
Oh, he hasn't had a 10-WAR season since 2013.
Right. I think he could do it. He looks pretty good right now. The counter one to that was Mike Trout won't finish the season with the Angels.
Oh, no.
Buy or sell?
I would sell that.
I would sell that.
I mean, the guy.
That's either injury or he gets traded.
Oh, injury counts for that?
It says he won't finish the season with the Angels. That's what it says.
On the team.
I know, but
I'll still sell that.
I'm selling it too.
The guy's a career halo.
He's never leaving.
Unless the Phillies want him when he's like 40. He's all right, screw it. I'll go home and watch Eagle games.
When his contract's over, he wants to play one more year, and the Phillies want him. He could be the DH guy.
And we'll get Bryce Harper and Mike Trout as teammates. Like we all envisioned when they were 21.
Nelly Cruz. Buy or sell, Bobby Witt Jr. wins an MVP while almost single-handedly leading his Royals to a division title.
Does he face Nick Nastrini every night? Because if so,
he's in trouble.
Yeah, if so, he's in trouble. I mean, if the Royals win the AL Central, he's got to be firm in the AL MVP race. I I'll sell that because I believe there would be better players. I like
I
going
agree
back
with
to the
you.
Yankees. If the Yankees are in the playoffs and they win 93, 95 ball
Juan's
games,
going to be part
it
of the
would Juan
conversation.
Soto's going to be part of that conversation, and politics are going to come into play, and Juan Soto's going to get an MVP over Bobby Witt. Sorry, but that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's 100% true. To me, it's because the thing with MVPs, as you just mentioned, the team's got to be good. Otherwise, they don't really
Right.
pay attention to you.
Right. Then it's okay. Now let's look at the landscape. Who else is good?
And he's with the Royals. They're already not going to get any recognition.
Yeah.
Especially as you're competing with everything. So I'm going to sell that one. Red Sox will represent. This is a freaking hot take. This is Carolina Reaper hot sauce equivalent hot take. You ready for this one?
Hit me.
Especially after the circus that they've been the last couple of, since they put this out, they've turned into a circus, the Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox will represent the American League in the World Series.
Yeah, can I sell that any quicker?
That was from David Schoenfield on ESPN.com. He said the Red Sox are off to a nice start thanks to pitching and defense. Yep, you read that right. Rookie center fielder Ceddanne Rafaela, flanked by Jarren Duran and Tyler O'Neill, three guys who can really run. Reminded of the 2013 World Series champs who had Jacoby Ellsbury in center, Shane Victorino in right, or the 2018 World Series champs with the Killer Bees, Mookie Betts, Jackie Bradley Jr., and Andrew Benintendi. Some serious comparisons there.
That's high praise for Tyler O'Neill.
Yes, that's high praise for those three guys that have played less than 20 games and just collided with Rafael Devers in the outfield yesterday. New pitching coach Andrew Bailey has the staff throwing fewer fastballs, and it's working wonders as 4 of the 5 starters have ERAs under 1 through their first 2 starts, although Nick Pivetta just landed on the IL. Rafael Devers and Tristan Casas haven't even hit yet, but O'Neill has with 6 home runs. If you're worried about the pitching depth, well, nobody else has it either, and the Red Sox have a ton of payroll room to make some in-season moves. That 2013 team came off a losing season and won it all. This team can do the same. Are you convinced now by David Schoenfield after what he just laid out for you?
No.
Neither am I. Buy or sell, they finish in last.
I'll buy that.
I think they come in last. I still don't even think they're not better than Tampa.
No.
They're not better than the Yankees.
Nope.
They're not better than Toronto.
Nope.
And they're not better than Baltimore. No, they're not better than any of those teams, and so they're going to come in last, and which means they're not going to make the playoffs.
They're not going to represent the AL in the World Series.
Yes. How about the Red Sox? By the way, 2-6 at Fenway Park this year.
That's wild.
Not good.
How do you lose on Patriot Day? Come on, Guardians.
How do you get shut out
on
Patriot Day?
Asking questions.
Look at this stat line for the Red Sox. So this is all during their hot start, right? 2-6 at home. 7-3 away from Fenway Park. Crazy. 0-5 against teams above 500.
Not sustainable would be how I could phrase that up.
They are the only team in Major League Baseball to not have at least one win against a team above 500.
That's wild.
It's early in the season. I mean, you have to run into some team that has been above 500 and got them one time. They're 0-5 against teams above 500 at 9-9. Not thinking it's happening. I don't think it's happening.
No, can't say it will.
No, absolutely not. Last one for you. This one's very interesting. I like this one I talked about on my show. Ellie De La Cruz. This is from Jeff Passan. Guy knows ball. This is his hot take. This is Pepper X, hot sauce equivalent, is what it says. Ellie De La Cruz is going to steal the most bases this century and become the first 30-80 player in history.
Oof. What's he at right now?
Remember, this century, which means he doesn't have to do better than Ricky Henderson.
Well, I mean, 30-80 kind of gives me the number of where he's at.
30 pumps, 80 stolen bases.
I'll buy that.
I can buy it.
I mean, I saw Ronald get 70 last year.
Right, just because of how much easier it is to steal bags this year, or like in baseball now with the new rules.
Yeah.
This is what Jeff Passan had to say. In MLB's modern era, the 80 stolen base mark has been reached just 23 times. The last time it happened was in 1988 when both Ricky Henderson and Vince Coleman exceeded it. De La Cruz, Cincinnati Reds dynamic 22-year-old shortstop, will break that 35-year drought, and on top of that, hit at least 30 home runs. These are serious impediments to... There are some serious impediments to De La Cruz achieving this beyond his age. And the fact that this is his first full season in the pros, he strikes out a lot. That's what Jeff Passan said, word for word. And getting on base, an imperative to make his production come true, is not something at which he exceeded or excelled in his rookie season, doing so only 30% of the time. Still, this is a bet on his immense talent, the sprint speed that is the fourth fastest in Major League Baseball, the home runs that go 450 to dead center. Coleman stole 110 bases with a 320 on base percentage in 85. Henderson fell 2 homers short of 30-80 in 1986. It wouldn't be bold if it wasn't unlucky, but De La Cruz's start, 6 stolen bases and 3 homers in 12 games, puts him on track.
Yeah, he's at 4 homers and 6 stolen bases. He does strike out a lot. He's striking once in every 3 at bats, but the homers is probably way more likely because he plays in a bandbox.
Yes,
and he doesn't even rely on an on base percentage. Or
he plays
blocks,
in the Great American Bandbox.
Yeah, I mean that's just a fun one to follow. And a fun player to say, hey, you know what? Let's see a 30-80 season from him.
What did we say about? I think we did one time. Like, what does somebody have to do in order to pass Ricky Henderson? Don't you have to steal like 100 bases or something?
Oh, it's
insane or something like that?
It's probably ridiculous.
How many does he have? I forget. He's got an insane amount. Where it's like, even if you try to do it on MLB The Show,
he's got 1,406.
So you divide
just divide that by 80, right? That hasn't happened.
Yeah, divided by 80.
40 years.
That's gonna take somebody 17 and a half seasons.
Yeah, you're not gonna have wheels for 17 big league seasons.
God, how did he do that? He stole over 100 bags 3 times in his career. 100 in 1980, 130 in 82, and 108 in 83.
Run, Ricky, run.
Jeez.
How about this one? He stole 15 bases against a single team in 1982.
In one game?
No, like throughout the season.
Oh, throughout the season? Oh, you can't throw him out. With the new rules and everything, how many bases do you think Ricky Henderson would have been able to steal nowadays? Double the amount that he has?
170, 180.
1,406 stolen bags. I mean, he even stole 3 at age 44 for the Dodgers. He played 30 games for LA in 2003. He stole 3 bags.
Was there a defensive indifference back then?
I don't know. It's 2003. He stole 25 for the Pods in 2001 and stole 29 for the Pods in 97 and 37 for the Pods in 96.
Nice.
How about it? Run, Ricky, run. So if Ellie De La Cruz does something that nobody's done in how many years? What did I say it was?
What is it, 88?
Yeah, 89? Since 1988.
36 years?
When Ricky had 93 in 1988. Ricky didn't have 80 after that. So he would have to do that 17 years. Remember, Ricky Henderson played 25 years in the bigs.
Yeah, the guy had an extremely long career. In the last 6-7 years, he was just playing for whoever the hell would take him.
Mets, Mariners, Pods, Red Sox,
Dodgers.
I played for how many teams? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's a good immaculate grid right there. 9 teams.
His baseball reference where it shows all the jersey numbers is about 4 rows deep.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's probably wearing
numbers and
multiple numbers for different teams.
Multiple numbers for the same team sometimes.
Yeah.
Too.
He wore 24. He wore 24 here, didn't he?
He did.
He did both times.
Yeah, but I mean Toronto, he wore 14 and then he wore 24.
It's hard to count like the A's, right? Because he came up in 79. So he obviously was going to change his number, but he went 39 to 35 with the A's. And then the A's changed their uniform, so it's 35 again.
Yep.
And then the Yankees, he was 24, 20, and then he goes back to the A's, and it was 22, and then he switches to 24 for the A's 2 more times, and then 14 at the Blue Jays, 24 at the Blue Jays, 24, 24, 24. Then he goes back to 35 with the Mariners, 24, 35 with the Red Sox, 25 for the Dodgers.
Seattle Mariner legend. Ricky Henderson.
Los Angeles Dodgers legend. Ricky Henderson.
Yep, him and Manny Ramirez, all timers.
Yeah. San Diego Padres legend. Mike Piazza.
That was a fun year, with Mike Piazza as a pod.
You know, it's not a good day for Texas baseball when they lose to Texas Rio Grande Valley, and what's trending right now is the Augie Garrido speech.
Wow, the Fighting Steven Lancias.
That's right.
Wow, hey,
Steven, I gotta check the box score.
what a hot 36 hours.
I gotta check the
between
box scores right
Strini
now.
and Lancia.
Yeah, the Scripps Ranch Little League products are doing exceptionally well.
Buy stock now.
That's
BC John Ross.
Scripps Ranch Little League products. I'm pretty sure they got smoked today. Texas did.
That's
No,
a
they haven't even
midweek
posted
game.
the score
Don't
yet.
put too much into it.
I gotta see how the boys did, though. You know,
It's weird to keeping up with your rival like that.
no, I'm talking about Stephen Lancia.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
I don't care about the Texas Longhorns.
Hey,
Yeah,
you never
17-9 ball game, huh? Hey, here you go. Lancia, 1 for 6. Got 6 ABs though.
Nice.
6 ABs. Let's what do you do in those at bats? They drove in a run. Drove in a run today.
Do
in
your
Austin,
job.
Texas.
Do your
Good
job.
job. Hitting 4th for the God, what are they
The
called?
Vaqueros.
Are they the Vaqueros?
They are the Vaqueros.
See, when I was at TCU, they were 2 different schools. And they merged into one school. They changed their name, but it was UT Pan American was the school. And then they changed it to Rio Grande Valley for some reason. Steven Lancia, 1 for 6, 2 runs scored, and RBI. Hey, good day at the yard. He had 7 plate appearances. He didn't have a walk, and he only K'd once, hitting 385 on the season. Well done, Steven.
Nice.
All right, some positivity in the show because it's time to wrap this up. Ron Davis, Ricky is for sure my favorite MLB player ever, and perhaps most lovable of all time.
I don't know about most lovable, but
Ron's an A's fan too.
What a wild life.
His
What a
dad
wild
grew up an
ring.
A's fan, so
Huh?
he's an A's fan for Barron, and he's also a Dodgers fan. But 'cause
I'll
he's
accept it.
from Bakersfield, so they always root for LA teams, dude. So
He's stuck right in the middle.
yeah, he
I
is,
mean,
in the
just-
reality of things. But good showing out of Stephen. I would love to see the local kids do some damage. That's Matt Perez. I'm Braden Suprenant. We had Will Galvez. I think he took a 5-iron to his, or what was it, a wedge? Did he have a wedge?
He had a 56 degree.
He had a 56 degree that he's office spacing his computer right now. He's so upset.
He found the club face though, first time in a while.
That's right. He hadn't seen that in a long time.
Yeah.
So he took it out on his computer. Hopefully he could do that for our Don's Alumni Golf Tournament we're going to participate in. For all of us here at Why Start a Podcast, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week on the